Good evening. My name is Susan Sarles, and it's my pleasure to welcome you tonight. We describe the Amos Fortune Forum with the phrase, honoring the past, exploring the future. And the forum has shared thoughtful ideas on Friday evenings in this beautiful meeting house since 1946. As attendees, you're very important to the success of the forum. If you have ideas, or if you'd like to join the committee, there are cards on the seats. You can speak to any of us on the committee after the presentation, or use the QR code to go to our website. Donations are also accepted at the website, of course, and you can take part in an old forum tradition by dropping a donation in the begging bowl at the doors as you're leaving tonight, if you're inclined to do so. We appreciate it. We are recording tonight's presentation, so if you have friends who weren't able to make it, please encourage them to go to our YouTube channel. It takes many people to bring this season of the forum to fruition. So we are very grateful for our generous corporate sponsors, for our individual donors, as well as many volunteers. For example, the wonderful dinner for our speaker and guest tonight was provided by Dax and Trevor Baird Murray. And each week, Bonnie at Call's Garden Center creates a flower arrangement list that's connected to the evening's theme. So as you look closely at tonight's and hear the presentation, you'll see two aspects of our speaker's world that are represented in the flowers. So take a look. The flowers are donated by members of the Amos Fortune Forum Committee, and we're grateful for that. We also thank the committee, obviously, for all the work they do, certainly during the season, but throughout the year to make this happen. We're very fortunate that Betsy Trimble has coordinated our receptions this season. As she thought about this year, one of her goals was to broaden community partnerships, and we have a perfect partnership for tonight. Our speaker was her Conant High School class valedictorian. So a community group focused on strengthening and sustaining our local schools was delighted to step forward and show support for one of our own. So thank you to Working Together for Jaffrey Ringe for hosting tonight's reception. We have a number of representatives from that group here who you'll see over at the reception. After the presentation, please do join us. You can follow the lanterns outside, across the parking lot, to the First Church of Jaffrey's Parish Hall. I have to admit, the first time I came to a forum many years ago, I was a little hesitant to cross that dark way. But there has been wonderful food prepared and good conversation, so please do join us. And you'll also have a chance there to ask questions or speak more with our tonight's speaker. Now, the forum has a history of presenting speakers who have ties to the Jaffrey community. As we all know, there are ties and there are ties. I'm sure you've all heard someone say something like, I'm not really from here, I've only lived here 26 years. And Abigail Gallup LePage qualifies for ties with a capital T. So we're delighted that her talk tonight is entitled 10 Generations, Deep Roots and Scientific Pursuits. Abigail will be interviewed by William Baker, and she'll share how her early years in Jaffrey led to her current position as CEO of Kimball Physics, a company that Google Maps labels a scientific equipment supplier. But I think we'll learn from the discussion that that simple phrase doesn't begin to capture the intricacies of the work that Abigail does within her company. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Abigail LePage and her interviewer, William Baker. Baker.
Bright in here, huh?
It's not that bright.
Guess I can take the sunglasses off for once in a while.
How are we doing on sound? Can't hear? You can hear now?
Hello? Am I good? How are you? Guess yours out.
I think they can hear me.
They can hear you? All right. Right on over here to you. Since it's all about you tonight, we're going to jump right into it. And I got my notes. The first thing that I want to ask you about, Abigail, and the first thing that I actually I think that we should dig into is how and when did you find out that you were a 10-generation Jaffrey resident?
Right, so it's one of those things where you're always told a lot of things growing up, and my mother, my grandmother, and family would always say that we were 9th generation, and so what I had to do is I had to prove to myself that that was true. So this book right here. This is the key.
A bit of light reading.
Yeah. It's the history of Jaffrey, New Hampshire, Volume 2. It's heavy. And it took a little while to go through the different generations and track who had who as a child. And so the Cutters were our first tie to Jaffrey, and then there were a lot of Rachels. By the way, my sister's name is Rachel. Our family was not very, they like to name people the same name. So there's a Daniel Cutter, and then there's the Edmund Shaddix that are pretty much the start of Shaddix being a big part of Jaffrey.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing too, you just bringing that up. I mean, when did it probably come most predominant to you, in a way? Were you old enough to really realize, how prominent the Shaddix were within your own family? And, at what time period or at what age did you start to understand how influential the Shaddix as a family were? Or did they really speak out about it, or ever really share with that? Or give me some insight on where you would see that from.
Yeah, so there were countless stories. A lot of it goes back to the Shattuck Inn. That was a very important part of Jaffrey. And it was kind of a big deal. It started as a kind of a boarding house, really.
Really? A boarding house?
Yep.
See, I didn't know that. I always thought that it actually started as an actual giant hotel.
No, it was a very large house, and I think it's my great grandmother Rachel Cutter Shattuck that started taking in summer boarders.
Wait, when you say summer boarders, you mean just people that didn't have a place to stay?
Some of it was family.
Some of it was family.
Family, friends, and they'd come for the summers and want to spend time in Jaffrey, Mount Monadnock.
So it kind of seems like your family was almost on this outreach program, even all the way back then.
It probably started that way, and I think it sort of developed into something bigger than just boarders.
And it's growing and growing.
Yeah, so then they did expand the inn, and I don't know all the years actually. That's not something I'm kept good notes about, but they expanded the inn to be more of an inn instead of just small boarding house, and but then it burned down right after they made the expansion, and it actually never got used with the renovations of the expansion.
And that's the interesting thing, because like once it burned down, and I've done my fair share of research on it, then it became a very renowned and kind of like an exclusive hotel where the train would roll into Jaffrey, and you had senators and movie stars and major writers coming here to stay at it at the same time, as kind of a reprieve, as kind of like
Right,
an escape.
that's after it got rebuilt.
Right.
After the fire. So
Yeah.
it got rebuilt, and then it really started.
How long
to
do you think,
become
how
in.
long was it between like that time when it got burned down to like the next section? I mean, was that like 50 years or?
Well, so they started to take in borders, and some of the history that I found said 1856, but my Uncle Doug did correct me and said it couldn't have been then because it was actually after the Civil War. So I did some more research, and it looks like it was actually 1868, which would make sense because the Civil War ended in 1865. So that was kind of the start of the early years of the inn.
So it sounds like to me like there were like two sections that were starting point. First off, it was kind of a reach out program. And then it kind of crossover once you guys got more developed, you rebuilt, and then it became this very renowned and actually influential inn. So there's like two starts to it.
Right,
Is that
right.
correct?
So, it became a renowned retreat that people would come from New York City, they'd come from Boston, and they'd come year after year. And, you know, the stories that I heard, you know, a big prominent person that would come to the inn every fall. I think she would avoid the summers because it was a little too busy. Was Willa Cather, and she's
I'm sorry?
Willa Cather.
The writer.
Yeah, she's a Pulitzer Prize winning
Right.
author.
The feminist writer, I believe, right?
Yes, yeah. And
Right.
she used to come and she would stay at the inn. She had a certain room with the windows facing Mount Monadnock, and she would write. And it was a place that she loved to be, and obviously found some creative inspiration.
Did she ever say why? Was there any specific reason on that, or was it just because she actually could get away and kind of like find her own place and you know, just be seclusive enough to be left alone in order to write?
I think
As a writer myself, I can understand that.
I think the
It's just
seclusion
like, come on, we
and the
gotta have it.
mountain view, all of that inspired her.
Okay.
And she became good friends actually with my great aunt Eleanor Osterman. Well, was a Shattuck, became Osterman.
So they became friends.
They became really good friends, and spent a lot of time. You know, every year they would visit.
Do you
and-
think that was any part of the, like maybe some of the inspiration that she got, being the fact that she was running the inn at the time, that maybe played into some of the books that she had at the time?
It's hard to tell exactly what goes through someone's head when they're writing, but I do know that my aunt Eleanor, she had twins, and one of them tragically passed away at 4 years old. And Willa Cather did come to the old burial ground right here, and
He's right here.
right because my family plots in the corner of the old burial ground.
And she's,
And my great aunt's son that died is buried there. And I think it was Margaret Bean that wrote a history article about that she thought that probably had a significant influence on why Willa Cather wanted to be laid to rest here in the old burial ground. And my family helped her get a plot, which is right on the corner between our family's plots.
and they shared that with her. Just,
Yeah,
they obviously were very close.
yes, they were close.
Give me another one. I mean, there's got to be a plethora of different people,
Well, I'm
even the
sure-
stuff that I've looked up. Give me a story of, you know, somebody else. You know, give me a story of like anybody else, off the top of your head, if you got one.
Right, so, I mean, I have been talking to a few people in my family and
I'd hope so.
getting some of the stories that maybe I didn't remember when I was kind of a crazy little kid.
Yeah.
But what I'm told is that the food deliveries that would come up from Boston, there was a young man who would come up and regularly come to the inn and bring the food, and he, from what I'm told, learned to make ice cream from my great aunt and her mother that were making it for the Shattuck Inn, and his name was Howard Johnson, and
The ice cream mogul.
well. So
Actually,
even if
he
you
had
look,
hotels, I think, too.
there's hotels, one of the early franchises. If you look, it was one of the things that they would advertise was the 28 flavors of ice cream, and I didn't know as a kid that that had happened, but it's come down through, generations in the family that actually was the case, and I don't know, it's pretty.
Okay,
great
wait,
story.
back up a sec. So you're telling me your great-grandmother taught Howard Johnson how to make ice cream in the 28 flavors? Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, that's
That
what they
was
said.
his mentor?
That's what they said.
Did they ever say how he took that particular business, that he learned from your great-grandmother and then turned it into a giant hotel mogul?
So I don't know that. Sometimes you just get these little tidbits of stories.
You should have researched more.
I know.
Because I would have really liked to know how he pulled that off.
Well, we can probably Google it.
Yeah, if Google was that reliable these days. What do you think, the impact within the family, even knowing that? Did anybody know it, or is it only you that know it, or is it, was that just kind of a common theme that everybody kind of knew about?
Well, I think the Willa Cather stories everybody knows. I'm not sure how many people know about the Howard Johnson story, and there were probably countless others. I'm sure that some of the stories just didn't make it through, or maybe they didn't make it to me.
Well, I think it would be hard to, because as much, and to be honest with you and anybody in the audience, as much as research that I have, and I read through as much as I could, it seemed to me, and from what I could gather, that a lot of predominant people would come up here to stay. It's just that nobody wanted to know about it. And you had a lot of senators, you had a lot of actors, you had a lot of, and nobody
spread around.
Right, so it was kind of
They want their privacy.
Right, and nobody talked about it. So you guys kind of, let's say, like the Shattuck Inn, hush hush, right?
Maybe.
That's just kind of like how it had to
It's hard
be.
to think
Or
of
else they
hush-hush between our
wouldn't
family.
want to be here because they didn't want to, be bombarded with whatever happened. But you guys, as the Shattuck Inn, seemed to, at that particular time, harbor a lot of amazing talent and up-and-comings throughout that time, especially in the growing of America. Did your family ever talk about that to you, or have any, did they ever discuss it in the family, or was it more
I think it's
nothing?
difficult because I was pretty young when a lot of the discussions were going on. It was my great aunt that worked there after her parents, I guess, retired from running the inn.
Yeah.
And yes, I did spend time with her, but it was when I was younger, and I probably didn't ask the questions that I should have asked.
Maybe not, but you were young.
I was young.
I mean, but you still have family in Jaffrey, right? Or at least in the surrounding towns. I know that you have. I've talked to some of your uncles, I've talked to some of your families, and I've heard some of the stories that these guys talk about. We're talking 20, 40, 50 years back even, because they're getting up there. And they have a slew of very interesting stories about the things that went on. It's interesting to me that through all that time, they never hit on any of that. They almost seem to be more curious about the time they raged a canoe down the wrong river and smashed it to pieces or something like that, or lit the field on fire. They're all full of good stories, though. Did they bring up anything more than that?
Well,
or-
I mean, I think it's been documented, and my family did talk about, the fires that were burned, when the livestock would be grazing on Mount Monadnock, and they had trouble with, wolves, and they would actually burn.
Yeah, that's one of the stories they told me
Yeah.
about. Is like when they lit Mount Monadnock on fire and burned half of it down.
Yeah,
And,
so
that's
again,
what
I don't know all the details, but it did happen. I've definitely had enough stories to know that it wasn't made up, and it was semi-documented.
It must have been a fascinating situation, though, to grow up in a town. You still live here today. You still love where you live. You live in the same house that your parents built to this day, and you feel very dedicated to this specific area. And is, maybe being the fact that you're around and surrounded by the amount of people that actually have supported you over the years, and all those stories and all that stuff that's been influential on your life, it gives you a certain amount of comfort, would you say?
Well, definitely. I mean, it's home.
And that's always will be for you, I suppose. All right. So, I guess I could just say growing up in Jaffrey for you was a pleasant experience, and that's kind of like what you really like and enjoyed to do.
Oh yeah, I had a great time growing up.
It's like, you take yourself, for example, we talk about this, in the modern world, most younger women want to get as far away from where they grew up as possible. But you seem to have the opposite effect. You seem to be drawn back to where your roots are. Why is that?
Well, I didn't always know that I would come back. I think, I loved growing up here. I loved being outside. I loved horseback riding. I liked playing with the goats. All the things that being
All right.
in New Hampshire allows.
Earlier conversation that we had before the interview, you were telling me how much you loved being outdoors, how you're the tomboy of the time.
Yeah, that's quite accurate.
Playing in the woods, building the tree forts.
Well, there wasn't a lot else to do. but it is.
Sure,
it
no
is
video
what I like.
games?
No, the bouncing of the ball. We did have one of the early computers because my father was definitely into having as much technology as we could have as soon as possible. So.
Yes, because he was always an entrepreneur as well. But you
Yes.
still, a big passion in your life is riding horses, right?
I still do.
You still do, and you still love it. So that's really cool, and that's really interesting. You did go to school here in Jaffrey as well, is that correct?
Yep, I went through the Jaffrey school system, Conant High School, graduated, decided to go on to college. Bates College ended up being the place for me.
While you were in high school, I heard that you had started a couple of clubs that still rule today.
Well, the only
Or at
club
least
that
still in existence
the
that
only
you did.
club that I started was the tennis club
Tennis
at the time, and I think it was Mr. Tilton, Len Tilton, who I talked into coming and coaching for us, and it was a small group of kids, and I mean, none of us were great at tennis, but it was at least something that we wanted to be able to do. There were great tennis courts, and they weren't being used.
And this was all your idea?
Well, yes,
like
I
you
started.
were like, oh, this is what
I started the club, but
Okay.
it was nothing when I was doing it.
No, that's cool.
But the cool thing is it continued on,
Yeah, it did.
and
And from what I hear, like, didn't your niece went to the same school, right? And then didn't that same team that you had kind of put together, didn't she go on to win some sort
yeah,
of...
they won the state championships.
They won this
Right,
state
Helen?
championship. Congratulations.
Yeah, I had no idea I was going to do that. I was just trying to
Well, that was
start
like
little,
a couple
little
decades
club.
earlier. I don't think that you would have been able
Okay,
to know.
decades.
Okay.
You're right.
A millennia
Yeah.
in their time period. All right, so And so going from there, your father was a teacher up in Keene, and he taught physics.
He did. Before I was born, he taught physics.
And this is before you were born.
Yes.
And he was really into them. And this is probably why he, from what you tell me, and you can probably tell the rest, he seemed to have a kind of ear to the grindstone on things that haven't been developed yet. And he truly went out of his way to be about as innovative as possible in just about any form that he could be. Would you say that's correct?
Well, I think there was very little that he couldn't tackle. He had his own business building houses. He would design them and build them, and then he, in the early satellite dish era where they were 12 feet in diameter, he started his own business installing and setting up satellite TV.
And don't get me wrong, this is when people like using like H-track tapes, right? Like records.
I don't know. Well, it
would have been around that
VHS.
time. VHS,
for sure.
okay, VHS for short.
Right.
All right. Do you think that had a huge influence on you and the science and actually going into physics before you even went into college?
Well, I think it was hard to not get something from that science background, and he wasn't just a nerdy scientist. He also had quite a sense of humor, and his satellite business was called Down to Earth Communications. And what he
Down
had,
to Earth.
yeah, had the satellite was like Down to Earth.
That is funny.
And what he had on the back of the T-shirts was Down to Earth Communications. We love doing dishes,
No, that's funny. Okay, am I getting my mic right? All right. You apply for Bates College, is that correct?
Yes.
You get accepted. You go in there with a major of...
It was physics and astronomy because it was a dual. That was the major. It went together.
Now, what you told me earlier that when we were speaking, that you were kind of like more on the astronomy side. You were kind of like more interested in the astrophysics side.
What kind of space cadet girl laying on the roof with her dad looking at stars isn't more into astronomy? I didn't even, at the time, I wasn't even sure what is this physics thing, but I definitely like to learn about stars. So, so I did get into the major, and once I was there and actually in the labs and doing experiments, and that's when I really knew, oh, this is what I like.
It gotcha.
Yep.
All right, and then as soon as you were in there, you actually got your teeth sunk into something. You kind of like started to go in a very physics direction, like hands-on physics.
So yeah, I liked the hands-on physics. That was my favorite.
Well, tell me some of the first things in physics that you like that really captivated you on, like what you thought that you could advance or like you could benefit from, or even still that interests you enough to where you think that you could have an impact on moving it forward.
Well, so one of the nice things about Bates College is that they required that for senior year you do a thesis project, and
I think they all do.
it was, I don't know, usually you have to get into the master's and PhD level to really do a lot of
And did you
thesis
get into
work.
the master's and PhD?
Nope.
You didn't?
No.
You
no.
did this on your own?
This is Bachelor
Okay.
of Science degree.
Okay.
But what I did get to do is I got to work with my professor who...
Who is this?
George Ruff was his name.
George Ruff.
Yeah, he was my professor, my advisor, and
Kind of a...
he asked me if I wanted to work on this project with him, building an atomic trap.
An atomic trap.
What's that?
Sounds like Ghostbusters. How does that work?
Well, it kind of is. It involves a lot of lasers and.
Well, give us like the breakdown of like what that would entail.
Well, so you have a cloud.
Remember, none of us know
I know.
what this stuff means.
You basically have
Where
a
did
cloud
you-
of atoms,
Okay.
and you direct lasers in from 6 sides, and you continuously push light. Yes, light can push atoms, and you push those atoms to the center. And as you push them to the center, they're spiraling around, and they start getting more compact, and they slow down, and they become ultra cold, and then you can have a
Ultra cold, like how cold?
like a few degrees Kelvin,
Like compared to like
like really cold.
coldest places on the universe or colder?
Yes. Yeah.
Really? And that's measurable.
It is measurable, and they measure it by the vibration of the atoms, and so they can tell by the vibration what the temperature is. And
All right, so with technology like that you're developing, even like straight out of college, that's your tent, like, your 10 posts, and now you've worked that out. How is that application going to be used for some of the most technological advancements that, let's say, most of the people in this room use on a day-to-day basis? Is there anything that we would understand?
well, I mean, probably people have heard of quantum computing.
Quantum computing.
It basically stems from very similar processes. And honestly, when I was looking to find a career, I don't know if we're going into my career stage yet.
You can. Yeah, go ahead. We can always circle back. There's no rules.
So I
have a
came
list,
across
but I-
I came across Kimball Physics on the internet when I was looking to come back to Jaffrey. My mother passed away, and
AOL, like AOL style.
yes, my mother passed away, and I had a house that I either had to sell or come back and figure out how to do something. So I found Kimball Physics on the internet and went to visit. And boy, was that eye-opening.
So wait a minute. So you come back home, your mom's still there, you had just gotten out of school, you graduated. What did you graduate as, by the way?
What
in your class?
Oh, not in college. I wasn't anything spectacular.
But it seems like this would have been, because like if you're working on cutting edge technology and now you're going to go and visit one of the cutting edge R&D physics company that is a spin-off by MIT that really correlates with what you're doing, I think that it has something to do with it.
Well,
I mean,
I got really lucky to
yeah.
find something that was in my field
Yeah.
that was so close to Jaffrey, so I could come to the house, now my house, and have a job within 30 minutes doing physics.
doing exactly what you were building.
It's surprising, but yes, I actually took my degree and did something specifically related to it.
Do you think the advancements since then, I mean, what are we talking? How long have you been there at Kimball Physics now?
So I've been at Kimball Physics for 27 years now.
27 years. Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Yep.
And in that amount of time, you feel that, the advancements that you've made on this fusion technology that you're making has like really made an impact?
Well, so the interesting thing is, so Kimball Physics, I say we because, I mean, it's we now, but we don't make any of these atomic traps. What we do make is we make vacuum chambers, whereas I had to hand build it with pieces of Pyrex and stick them together. Kimball Physics makes actual vacuum chambers out of stainless steel, and where I had to kind of whittle the thing, I could actually have bought one of the products that we have to make my experiment go along faster. And so when I saw that, I thought, wow, like, that's relatable. It would have saved me so much time, and it saves customers time, which is why they'll
It's really
buy 'em.
incredible. You go from, you come out of, you come out of Bates, and then somehow you land yourself into Kimball Physics, which is an MIT spin-off company, and you start developing some of the most cutting-edge technological advancements that are needed for some of the cutting-edge technologies that we use in today. Tell me, do you sell to NASA?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Yep.
Do you sell to Elon Musk and SpaceX?
We sell to SpaceX.
You spell it? Okay. Do you sell to Toshiba and Sony and all the cell phone companies and Apple?
Yes.
You do. So you're building components that they're coming to you for on a regular basis for particular things that only you and you
Kimball
alone
Physics, yes.
are capable of designing the best of the best.
We think we do.
You think that, oh, modest too. And you've been overseeing that now for 25 years.
Well, no, I didn't start overseeing it. I started in the lab, putting things together.
But you've had a hands-on.
I had hands-on to just about everything I could, and that's how I became where I am now.
There's 8 billion people on the planet, give or take, like less than 1.1% of them would ever be able to understand what you're talking about and like what you build.
I know, believe me, I was warned, don't get too much into detail about the technology.
No, I think it's tremendous, to be honest with you.
I have to say, though, we do some cool things that are pretty relatable to anybody. Actually, it was not too long after I started at Kimball Physics. So we sold 300 kilovolt electron guns to NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, and I had to go down and install them on which the Space Flight Center is in the middle of an Army base. So it was pretty high clearance to just get in there.
Right.
And what they were using our electron guns for is to simulate solar winds.
Wow.
And what does that mean? Well, so the sun is this, reactor basically, and electrons are blasting off of it all the time. And what they're trying to do at the Space Flight Center is study materials that satellites are going to be made out of, so that when satellites go up into space and they're bombarded by these electrons coming off the sun, that they don't just disintegrate. So they have to test it out and test the material first, and they use our electron guns to simulate that and see how the material will survive.
How many teams of people that you work with in your firm right now, how many campuses, like different departments and different management teams are you overseeing currently that work together to make all this happen, that you oversee directly? So
we're all on one campus, multiple buildings,
Right.
and we have actually 78 people right now because we have 2 summer interns for the next 2 weeks.
Almost 100 people.
It's getting there.
Wow.
Yep.
And you have to oversee all of them?
Yes.
Indirectly through different management. What is the majority of people that work on your campus that are men?
So there are a lot of men in my field, yes.
What would you say the ratio is? Because this is a hot topic these days. I'm going to get a little provocative and ask you something like that. If you could give me something.
It's probably 70-30. 70% male, 30%
And you're the
female.
one in control, and you're the one who's running it all?
Well,
What do you think about that? Do you think that's ever been, detriment, or has it ever crossed your mind, or does it not really matter and people trust you? Like, what do you think?
well,
The only reason I
do hope people
ask is
trust
we
me.
hear a lot of noise in the media today, and I'm just wondering, like, here's an organic girl, brought herself up I think my mic is, you brought yourself up from the bottom to the top, and you worked very hard, right? And I think it's, a question that should be asked, I suppose.
so it's a perfectly fine question, and it's not anything I haven't been asked before, I guess.
Well, I'd expect not.
I guess the thing is, I've never
Well, the
really
last time.
thought about it. You know, I was one of the only women in my department. I worked well with all the other males that were in my field, and it never really crossed my mind that it should be weird that I was a female doing physics. It just didn't, maybe it's a tomboy. But I just thought this is normal, and I think maybe some of that is what just helped me to, not be afraid of progressing in the field. I have to say, I'd be at conferences, and you go to conferences, and maybe not in my field, but others, or a baseball game or something, and the women's bathroom line is like coming out, like, and the men's line, they're going in and out. Well, that's
It's a little easier for us.
that's the opposite, though. When you're in my field and you go to the conferences, you go to the bathroom, there's no one in there. Like, absolutely no one. And the men's bathroom, you can actually see they're waiting, and so that's kind of a benefit.
So would you, in your opinion, would you push, and I don't want to go against either sexes, but like young men and women, of course, when it comes to the field of science, especially in applied physics, what would you say to them? Would you be interested in trying to get them to like have a good future in it? And you think what would be some of the downfalls and some of the positives of integrating that into your life and full-fledged giving it all?
So what I want is somebody who's passionate about it, male or female.
Yeah.
The most important thing is that you really want to do it and that you love what you do. And we hired a couple physicists that actually a husband and wife, and they both graduated from Cornell in applied physics, and we have both of them, and they're fantastic.
That's good. Okay, and on that note, actually, now I have another question. It's gonna come off the cuff. Is there anything that's not, like, I don't want to get into, something that, might be, let's see, what's the word for it? Classified, because I know you guys work on classified information. Is there any recent developments that you could share with us that you're excited about that you're developing currently in R&D?
Well, I think that the integrated circuits that go into all of our cell phones,
You're talking microscopic little things.
very small. That's why these can be so small and so powerful. We provide cathodes, which are one of our products, to a company that makes what's called mask writers, that take an electron beam and basically cut out a stencil in a very small pattern.
Right.
And that stencil is used to print integrated circuits on silicon wafers.
And in our pre-interview, you were telling me that they're using this on the current space station.
So,
right? They're like
not the mask writers, but they're actually using what I worked on with my thesis, a similar experiment on the International Space Station.
right now.
Yep, it's up there.
The thesis you wrote,
It's not much. I mean,
but
people
they're
have-
using a version of it
people have done
on the
it.
space station. I can't even spell. Anyway, that's amazing. Let me see. Let me check my notes here. Well, I think that we kind of like reached everything I wanted to ask you, unless there's anything else that you'd want to ask me, or vice versa.
I think that the first I'm going to thank Miss CK here for basically guilting me into doing this presentation, because it's not, well, she deserves it, the credit. She was my swim coach, she was my biology teacher, And this is not where I want to be, is in front of a group of people, but I'm happy to see such friendly faces.
But didn't you have?
I do have something, I just wanted to make that comment to thank all of you people that are here. And I would like to show you just a couple slides of Kimball Physics, so that you probably haven't heard of it, but maybe you'd like to see a little bit about it, and it will inspire you to learn a little more. Do we need to let that warm up a little bit? I don't want my head in the way.
It's going to be difficult.
So, one thing that's a quick explanation about Kimball Physics is, I know, Susan, you were saying it's scientific equipment, which it is, but we manufacture electron and ion optics, which, what does that mean to anybody? Not much. Most of the time when most of the time when I try to describe what we do to people, I get that kind of blank stare, and I realize that I probably don't need to go into a lot more detail, but what I'm going to show you is just a couple slides, and most of it's just about the company, and not really necessarily just our products. Okay, so this is what we have as a description of the Kimball Physics products, and that up there is one of our electron guns. So the size scale is probably about like that. It's a 10 kilovolt electron gun, and what it does is electrons are accelerated out of it in a beam. And what do you do with that? Well, you can do all sorts of things. You can study surface sciences. You have this electron lithography, which I told you about, that makes the masks that print integrated circuits. Free electron lasers, which basically are taking electrons, bouncing them around, and making all different kinds of frequencies of laser light that are difficult to get by other means. X-ray systems, accelerators, custom space industry apparatus. I talked a little bit about that. The vacuum chambers for cold physics research. Well, those are the cold atomic traps that I was telling you about that I worked on. And the esoteric physics, that's just kind of and all the other things. But we are an MIT spinoff. Our founder was a professor for 11 years at MIT and left MIT to start this, founded in 1969. So we're celebrating 55 years this year. Okay, we can jump out of that. This is our campus. We're on a hill, old farm. It was a very prosperous apple orchard at one time. There's not really many of the apple trees left, but our manufacturing is in this old barn. Of course, it's been renovated, and there's labs, and there's a machine shop and all that now. But it's a beautiful area. We have multiple buildings. We don't have one big building with hallways. We have multiple buildings, and we get to walk down the paths in order to go from department to department. It's a lovely place to be. And then just one more slide, and this is just to give you an idea of what our mission statement is. It's to advance humankind by doing good physics, specifically electron optics and vacuum physics, and all the while growing, being good citizens, making a living, and having fun. And so we do have a couple committees to try to keep this going. So one of our committees is a citizens committee, and we try to do stuff in the town, some outreach, and work with the libraries and do some science kits and things like that. And then we also have a fun committee. And you can imagine what they do. They make parties for us and set up all sorts of fun activities for all the employees. So in any case, and those are blueberries behind us in the picture, which it's a very large and wonderful blueberry patch that all the employees get to pick blueberries. So, and that's it. Oh, look at the timing.
So we do have time for questions.
Yes.
Question, just raise your hand if you wouldn't mind repeating the question.
Okay. All right. Yes, Deb.
How many acres is the campus at Kimball Physics?
Okay, so the question was how many acres is the campus at Kimball Physics? And we're on a small portion of hundreds of acres that are actually owned by the trust that our founder has. So Kimball Physics itself is probably on about 50 acres, but within hundreds of acres on the whole property.
The company itself is separated between two different entities, so Kimball Physics itself, like she said, is just a few, just a handful, depending on like what business it's actually located on. The property itself can range anywhere, I think it's around 700.
You could probably get up to 700
About
acres. I usually
700.
just say,
It makes up a huge chunk of
500 or
of Wilton
so.
Wilton's forest, yeah, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
I would really be interested to see, getting back to your roots, to see all the people that are related to you here tonight. I just love to see them walk up to the stage.
Oh, okay, good. Put them all on the spot. I like that.
Do we have a
So
spotlight?
the question was, all the people that are here that are related to me, could they please walk up here and stand in front and get their own?
They'd all love that.
Yeah. So my uncle Doug Shattuck, Mary Jane, my cousin Adam, my sister Rachel. By the way, there was Rachel throughout the history. It was hard to know which one was which in the genealogy, but she got the name. And this is Helen, her daughter. So I'm 9th generation and Helen is 10th. And she grew up in Jaffrey. And Alan, my sister's husband. Thank you, Marcia. Yes.
Knowing that you were raised by a physicist, this may not be such a good question, but physicists think in a particular style, in a range of styles. Is your style of approaching a problem or anything, do you feel it's different because you're a physicist? What do you bring to the table with? If you're looking to hire a physicist,
Yeah. I want them to be able to think outside the box. And when it comes to solving a problem, I think not giving up is one of the key factors. It's very easy to say, oh, this went wrong, we can't do that anymore. But what I look for in our physicists and what I hope that I also inspire them to do is look at a problem. If your first solution doesn't work, try an alternate, and then try an alternate. And keep trying until you figure out what actually is going to solve that problem. And is that a physicist brain? I don't know. I feel like it's the only way to troubleshoot. But maybe, like you said, maybe being raised in that kind of environment with my father, it's just natural for me.
Are you talking about like the difference between applied physics or hypothetical or like theoretical?
Well, you're pretty clearly not a theoretical physicist in your daily activity, but you're applying it.
Yeah, that's
I've known
true.
a bunch of theoretical physicists, and they wouldn't have lasted up on the stage.
Well, it was difficult.
Well,
They'd still be answering the first question.
Right.
I mean, you are like, you know, I'm interested in that question, like applied to that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you noticing that. I hope that I'm not just the bookworm physicist that, you know, can't think about anything else. What I do every day that I'm at work is pretty highly technical, but you know, and I never thought I was going to be a business person. That never crossed my mind. You know, I like to be in the lab. I like fixing things. What I realized that business is actually one big problem of a machine that you have to make work, right? So the business is having trouble in this area. What do you do about that? How do you fix that? How do you make it run efficiently? How do you make it make money? You know, all these things that have to come out as these are outputs. You know, I didn't know that I could do it, but apparently it takes the same skills as a physicist.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your many achievements. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
And how did a little MIT offshoot end up in the woods of New Hampshire in a barn?
Yeah, so that's a good question. How did an MIT offshoot end up in the woods of New Hampshire in a barn? Well, it's on Kimball Heights, on Kimball Hill Road, and our founder is Chuck Kimball Crawford. And so he also came from deep roots. Actually, when I was researching in the history books, and you kind of went a few generations away, some of the names of people that are from that area were linked to my family, which is probably not surprising. Everybody it was kind of everybody knew everybody, and people were marrying from nearby towns. So probably I'm actually related to the Kimballs, which I'll do more research to, I don't know that yet. But so his family was from there, and he came from MIT. His mother was still living there. He started building the first cathodes in the house where his mother was living. He was down at one end and she was at the other. And when he was selling the product and people were calling to get the products that he made highly technical, he'd pick up the phone because he was basically the only employee, and then he'd put it down for a minute, and then he'd go and talk as Dr. Crawford. So he started, you know, with about as grassroots as you could start, and the company has blossomed over the years into what it is today. Yes?
I assume that you get some federal funds, and if you do, have you had to deal with the DEI? Do you have a DEI program? Do you have to work it out? Have you had to deal with that?
So interestingly, we try to stay away from a lot of the federally funded projects because there's so much that you have to do to be able to comply with all the regulations that most of the time we don't do that. We have private companies, we have universities, you know, the ones that'll deal with, okay, they don't do that, but that's okay, we want their product. That's what we've chosen to do. And I'm sorry, there was a question here I wasn't getting.
This may be on left field, but are you concerned with the grid going down because of solar flares?
I think that's always a concern. And are we any more concerned than anyone should be? I mean, it's it's a reality. It can happen. So yes, we're concerned.
Well, the bell in the tower has rung. So we are going to be finished in this setting, but Abigail will be over at the reception. So if you have more questions, or if you don't have questions, we hope you'll come over and join her there. We want to thank you both for being here tonight, Abigail and Will. And as is our forum tradition, our thanks to you comes in the form of a jug of syrup.
Thank you. Thank you. Here.
So we'll see you at the